And away from the Koi building collapse to Anambra, where it is a few days to the governorship election, 18 political parties will participate in the election, and there are about 2.5 million registered voters. While preparations are in top gear, there are growing concerns that the poll may be disrupted by the one-week sit-at-home order issued by the proscribed Indigenous People of Biafra. TVC News senior political correspondent Ayodele Uzugbakun is in our Oka studio. With him is the project manager Yaga Africa, Cynthia Mbamalu. Ayo, good morning. Thank you for joining us, and we see the work you have been doing. Talk to us what the atmosphere is like leading up to the election, especially with the one-week seat at home. How has it been?
Yes, Veronica, yesterday, everything was normal yesterday, and even the People's Democratic Party, as televised by Television Continental yesterday, had their final rally at Alex Ekweme ground, and it generated a lot of crowd. People were there, and today we expect the All Progressive Congress to also have the final rally. Most parties, they will be winding off, knowing that in the next 48 hours thereabouts, that is Thursday, they are meant to actually suspend these campaigns, but they've not been able to have opportunity to do enough campaign all around the states like this. So yesterday was really, really interesting, and the large number of people that actually came out was actually something, a kind of encouragement to even people that have been observing this election. People actually turned up for that rally, and in spite of the security presence and everything, people came out and showing that if these political parties, they can actually bring out people, that's the hope on Saturday, get their supporters out to actually exercise their franchise without, being molested. And I have Cynthia Mbamalu here. Yesterday, we were talking about the Independent Electoral Commission as a critical sector. That's like the coordinating point in this election. Now they will determine the modalities, determine everything. Now you were talking about the kind of innovation they've come up with. Can you please tell us more about that?
Okay, so INEC introduced the Bimodal voter accreditation system.
That's the first time.
Yes, in a statewide election. So it was deployed not long ago in Delta State. They had a state assembly by-elections in the state constituency. So that was the first time it was tested, and we had observed that process. Now, how the BVAS work, it's called BVAS for short, so Bimodal Voter Accreditation System. It integrates both the registration process, so it's almost the same device. If you remember, we did not use the DDC machines for the CVR. The CVR was a new technology that was deployed, the tablet. So now it's that same tablet that was deployed from the CVR, but for election day purposes, it serves two major functions. First, to accredit voters, and then it is used to upload the results, to transmit results from polling units. Now, what we observed in Delta, for instance, showed that it had a faster processing time. So what does it do? For accreditation, it verifies the permanent voter's card. The barcode, we know the PVC has a barcode behind.
Yes, there's a barcode.
Yes. So it verifies.
Just scan the barcode.
It scans it, and the officials are showing if it's not successful in scanning, there are two things: it scans, and it can also recognize the voter identification number, the VIN. So where the PVC is not properly scanned or verified, the ad hoc official can also impute the last six digits of your VIN in the device, and it recognizes the PVC, provided it's an INEX PVC. If it is a cloned PVC, it would not recognize that. Now, once it verifies, the same device, the BVAS, is used to accredit the voter. Immediately, it verifies your... Yeah, it's authenticated, then it authenticates your fingerprint. Now, if the fingerprint fails, it does the facial. So the idea is to ensure that everyone is accredited.
Even if the fingerprint fails.
Yes.
So facial recognition.
Facial recognition is done.
The
this is
picture,
also
the passport you have there.
Yes, because we went for the trial and we also saw it work in Delta State. So once it scans your facial, your face, your picture, your image comes up on the screen. provided you are registered. Now, the idea is to reduce the whole concept of multiple voting that happens, or
that
even
means,
people that buy
that
PVC.
means you can't go through that process without the card reader.
Yes, the card is no longer called, it's not the BVAS, without the BVAS. Yes. INEC is even clear that no accreditation.
We can't fall back
no
on,
no
what do you call that form? Incident form?
No incident form this time around.
It must go, everything must go through.
Everything is expected to go through with this device. Wow. Because it's an upgrade from the smart card reader. And it also promotes inclusion, because persons that don't have not citizens that don't have their fingers, it can capture their facial image. So it also ensures. So the situation that you're spending a longer time, that you would want to thumbprint and it will not acknowledge it and everything. So instead of that, facial recognition. So once they try and it doesn't, they just.
This will eliminate multiple voting.
Multiple voting.
This will eliminate
the use of individuals who buy PVCs.
PVC, cloned PVC. We have no place in this election.
Impersonation of voters is not supposed to. Because remember,
so if you are gathering fake PVC, you are just wasting your time, because that authentication, the barcode will not be there.
Yeah, not just that. Once your facial or fingerprint, your full biometric, if it's not captured by the BVAS, you would not be allowed to vote. So now INEC wants to really implement this. We're hoping it works, because this is the first time this will be done statewide. Remember, it was just a state constituency that it happened in Delta State. But when we observed that, we saw it was faster than the smart card reader, because
any update on the electronic transmission of results from polling units?
Yes. So INEC would also be doing that in these elections.
They would do that the way they did in Edo and Ondo states.
Yes. And with the BVAS technology,
how does that work?
So now, what we saw in Edo and Ondo, and even in Delta, once the voting process is concluded, the presiding officer is supposed to use the tablet. So the ZPAD technology is now part of this BVAS. Now, this technology, what it's used, first they transmit the data of accredited voters from the polling unit to a central server managed by the Electoral Commission.
A central server.
So the accredited data and all of that is transmitted. Then the result sheet. So the result sheet is called the form EC8A. That's the result sheet.
From the polling
unit. A picture is taken of that. They take a picture and it's uploaded on the INEC results portal as it happens at the polling unit. Now,
can the public monitor that process real time?
Yes, it can be monitored
real time. INEC website.
Yes, and that is why it even people are encouraged to actually, once you're done voting and your results are counted at the polling unit and you leave, you can even go on the INEC portal. Is the INEC
so
results.
Online you can track everything.
You can track everything. You just go and you are expected to create your code, your password. And once you create a password, it grants you access. So you can see Anambra, just go to the states where you see Anambra, and then you go to your local government and then your polling unit. So you can download polling unit level
Because
results.
what we've had in time past is that the manipulation starts from polling units. Now that forms EC8A before it gets to the ward, ward, local government. It's going to be substituted, manipulated. A lot of people, they even have fake from EC8A substituted.
So, and that is the beauty of this technology. Actually, the idea is to promote transparency from the polling unit level, especially as it relates to results management, and provided that INEC officials adhere strictly to this. Because the guideline for this election is clear. If the BVAS is not deployed, the results for that polling unit will be cancelled. INEC is clear that the BVAS must be deployed for accreditation and the results will be uploaded from the polling units. So it's actually a clear process.
Do you have any area of concern in this process now?
Yeah.
Because the way you are stating it now is like it's foolproof already, almost foolproof.
Well, like, so
in Edo State, I noticed something. By 4-5 o'clock, people had a feel of what was going to happen, because already they were checking the portal and following it up. Even people in the diaspora.
Yes, anywhere you are, you can access that. Provided you create your password, you can access it. Now, we've also seen it work in Delta, where the results, before midnight, all the results from the by-elections were already uploaded on the track, because I was in Abuja tracking it. So it could be anywhere and you can track the results. Now, are there some worries? Yes, because with every technology, there are some pros and cons. And one of the things we are highlighting will be a major challenge, the issue around training and capacity for the adult staff that would use the this device. Why? Because if you don't efficiently train or sufficiently train, it would mean that the quality in the deployment would be...
Do they still have that person that will troubleshoot in each of the polling units?
Yes, so
once they have problems?
There's going to be this tech support that will be provided at one level. And what the idea is to ensure that if there is any fault or issues around functionality, a report is sent immediately to the tech support. I think it's called the RATEC or so, I can't remember it. And support is supposed to be provided at when new. And when the machine is not functioning, they can actually reach out and a replacement to be made if that happens. So likely challenge may just be around capacity to use the machine, and if people are not properly trained, they may not be able to manipulate the device in the deployment of accreditation and even the result. The other may be connectivity challenges in some locations in the states, which is why we want to see how this works statewide in Anambra, because there may be some connectivity challenges, you know. However, what we have seen is for uploading of the results, there were times where if it's not uploaded there, they could move. You know, sometimes
in the total collation, will INEC now improve on this total collation, that boring process that they will wait for this? They will still have to fall and wait for this manual form to collate manually.
So the technology does not substitute the manual. It only complements it. Now the idea is to promote better oversight. So while you're promoting transparency, you're ensuring better oversight of the results process. So the manual process will still be ongoing, because you need that paper trail. And there'll be a time when you need to ensure competition.
In a situation where the results is not corresponding with what you have uploaded in the server, which would take a preeminence.
So now that is left at the discretion of the Electoral Commission to make that decision. And that is why at the polling unit level, they start to track at the polling unit level, because it's expected that if it's correlated at the polling unit level, there shouldn't be a discrepancy at the ward level. So if such a thing happens, for instance, at LGA coalition level, what is required is to retrace the data back to the polling unit level to understand where that discrepancy happens. Now, because it's a dual process where you have both the electronic transmission and the manual, it is expected that there is no how you would have a misnomer at every level.
Okay, now
be a point you can trace back.
Now we are looking at INEC that we deliver almost foolproof. But the problem now is with politicians, the actors, in a situation whereby they still call people before going to the polling units to induce them, monitoring inducement very close to each of the polling units, and that the election will still be manipulated in terms of the highest bidder. What are we doing to that?
Well, I want to believe that the Electoral Commission is working with the security for better, because the idea is what the law requires is that is an electoral offense, which is a crime. And arrests are supposed to be made at polling unit levels where inducement is done. However, there's always been a challenge. There's been there's been some challenges with implementing that. So you hardly have arrest of individuals who go to induce voters. And there's a likelihood this would happen because, you know, like you said, politicians look for new ways to manipulate the process. If they think there is a more efficient process, then they look for how to use monies to buy the vote.
Yes, still talking about the players.
Yes.
A lot of people will say, oh, if it's not the threat from IPOB, the threat of possible breakdown of law and order is still there. And as I'm telling you, some people, from the feelers we got yesterday, some people might even be leaving the states and waiting that after the election, let them just finish whatever they want to do. They have their PVC, and before we come back.
Yeah, that's a possible choice. So if you followed the pre-elections phase, actually our pre-elections report already showed that some of the threats were not necessarily related to the IPOB. We had politically related or instigated
within the political parties.
Within the political parties, which most of times were reported as if it were IPOB-related activities. So you saw an increase in cult activities. And when you see all these reports of what the media calls the unknown gunmen, most of these things are actually politically motivated. So there's that likelihood that the players may not want to abide by the rules of the game. However, we're hoping that this and hide under the guise. You know, when there is the system is vulnerable, a lot of people want to manipulate that vulnerability, which is what we're seeing. Some of these security issues or all these shootouts you hear about, most of them are politically motivated, but it's hiding under the guise
I asked someone yesterday, and that person told me that eventually, if people don't turn up, if they don't come out to vote and everything, that there will be something they call federal might to manipulate the process. Is there any such thing?
I wouldn't want to get involved in the conversation around federal might, but one of the things we have seen is where there is low turnout, it is easier to manipulate the process. Because low turnout, which is why sometimes the political class actually benefits from low turnout, because if young voters don't turn out to vote, for instance, a polling unit that has 100 voters, if only 10 people turn out to vote, it's easy to increase the numbers to 90 and just share the votes across parties that have better power and paying powers to pay for the votes, which is why we always reach out to voters. Come out to vote. When you don't come out to vote, you give these politicians another opportunity to manipulate the process. And one of the threats we see is also the fact that there will be a lot of exchange of monies, because there's not been campaign or even issue-based campaign. So there's a likelihood it's going to go to the highest bidder.
Yes, monetized.
Monetized. There's a huge influence of money in the elections in Anambra, and this has affected even the quality of the process of participation, and even the quality of the leadership that is produced, because if voters are not coming out in their numbers to vote, and if they are being influenced, because now votes are counting, so the votes that are counted are the votes that are being bought. So it also benefits the politicians if voters don't come out, because then they can easily manipulate the process. Another threat we see is issues around information. Remember, INEC created new polling units. So Anambra had over 1,000 polling units added. They have about 5,700 and something polling units now from the last elections. And a lot of voters were moved around to different polling units. Now, one of the things we are beginning to observe is a lot of voters do not yet know their polling unit. So
my usual place I used to vote.
So on elections day, there's a likelihood to see
that
people
on that old polling unit, your name might not be there.
Might not be there.
Trying
to locate their new polling unit, and that may also cause some
voter education. That information is not.
Well, that's the thing. And you know, INEC already said that about 86 of the polling units do not have voters allotted to them. So we have 86 polling units that do not have voters. And elections won't happen in these 86, but it will happen in other places.
What's it?
So, I mean, those are conversations that needs to be had with INEC. Perhaps there's still a lot that needs to be done in reallocating voters, because there are still some polling units that has about 1,000 voters, while there are some that have 1 to 49 voters. Which is
not ideal for you to have 1,000 voters.
Yeah, the idea of creating new polling units or expanding it was to reduce the number, just so that it's accessible. There's a better crowd control, management of the people at the polling unit level. The Electoral Commission is assuring citizens that, we can easily manage these numbers, but until elections, most times, all of this is tested in the field. So when we go out to the field to observe, we would also have a better sense on what the picture would be like.
18 political parties or 18 candidates will be participating in this race. But Anambra is different, because in Nigeria now, when you're talking about dominant parties, you're talking about the PDP, the APC, it's the two big parties. But in Anambra, you have an indigenous party that the stronghold seem to be here. But aren't you worried that in Nigeria now, the trend is just that you have to choose between the devil and the deep blue sea, APC or PDP? Other political parties are getting weaker and weaker, and they're used as a kind of bargaining chips.
Well,
these actors.
Now, that's actually, in multi-party democracy, there's a likelihood for two-party dominance. That is actually the challenges within multi-party democracy. If we think about the US, they have a lot of parties, but here only of the Republicans and the Democrats. But Anambra is quite unique, because Anambra, there's a likelihood to have more than two players. In fact, it's three players, like you mentioned. The APGA, for instance, is known.
And don't forget that YPP is also having in the senatorial district.
Yes, YPP
there's a senator in it. Yes,
he made his debut in 2019.
Yes, in the
using one of the three senators.
Yes.
So you see, the dynamics are quite, because you can't necessarily say now that it's a two-party state. It's not. You have almost 4 top players, and you have other parties who are actually, because you know the party primaries were very contentious and controversial. If you remember, Anambra is where we had all these court cases that even needed the Chief Justice to call the court to order, because you had counter injunctions and what have you, counter court decisions here and there. So you had people who moved from these parties to contest on the platform of other parties, meaning that they are individuals who likely followed their aggrieved principle to another party, to another of these parties. So we likely
since 2019 now, Senator Uba, from YPP, I thought he was going to leave that platform to go to another platform, but he's still sticking to that YPP and he's holding his constituency. Yeah,
because his argument is going on the ground. He's making an argument that Nnewi has not produced the governor, right? I know the zoning in the political system in Anambra, the governorship is supposedly zoned to the south, to Anambra South Senatorial District. So if you see, most of the contenders are from this region, which is why you may have a lot of issues around violence within this. You hear Ihiala in the news, you know, it's within that senatorial district also. So there's a lot within that, and Ihiala has about the second largest number of voters in the South senatorial.
That's why it's contentious.
It's going to be one of those LGs to look out for. But so he's working on with that argument. We don't know what his chances are, because you're also looking at, to win elections in Nigeria, the constitution is clear. For governorship elections, you need to win at least 1/4 of the votes cast in 2/3 of the LGAs.
1/4 of the vote cast?
Yes, in 2/3 of the LGAs. And so you need to win at least 1/4. You need that spread across this.
Like we have 21 local governments in the
local government, and each senatorial district has 777. So it's the LGAs are evenly spread within the 3 senatorial districts. So now, whoever needs to win, you can't rely on just one. You need to have that 2/3, yes, across the senatorial, across the state, because that's what makes up, that's what gives you that balance to actually emerge as a winner. And there's a likelihood that votes to be shared. I mean, if turnout is low, it also affects the numbers, and it means it's going to be a close election, because when it's low turnout, the margins may be quite close.
And it might be contentious at the end of the day.
It's likely going to be contentious, at least within the, because I know the other party, I don't want it to, I don't let's like to say the big parties, because you also want to be sensitive to the other parties that are contesting. But I think for every party, at the end of it all, sadly they are all men. So the man that has, the candidate that has finally convinced the citizens would end up taking the day on an election day. But there is no guarantee on which party it is actually at this moment. There is no guarantee, at least amongst the 3. That
close contest.
It's going to be a close contest, yeah.
Cynthia Mbamalu, thank you for the enlightenment on Yaga Africa. Veronica, over to you in Lagos.
All right, thank you, Ayo, for that insightful conversation you had with Cynthia Mbamalu.